people may have in your books a chanting sheet, people who don't know what we're doing. Could you hold it up, Jinchuan? That's what we're going to be reading off of, if you got one of those. Gong Qi
Da De Sen Ting Wei Zi Fa Hui Lu Yi Jie Zhong Sen Qing Zhuan Miao Fa Wen Jiao Da Wo Men Fu He Liao Sen Tuo Si Li Ku De Le Su Zhen Wu Shen. Will the Sangha with great virtue, out of compassion, for the sake of this assembly and all living beings, please turn the wonderful Dharma wheel to teach us how to leave suffering and attain bliss and end birth and death, and quickly realize non-birth.
Namo tassa bhagavato arahato samma sambuddhassa.
Namo tassa bhagavato arahato samma sambuddhassa.
Homage to the blessed, noble, and perfectly enlightened one.
Homage to the blessed, noble, and perfectly enlightened one.
Namo sadanto suchedoye ulahudi sammya sanputoshi.
Namo saranto suchedoye ahadi samya sambuddhoshe.
无上甚深微妙法，百千万劫难遭遇。我今见闻得受持，愿解如来真实义。Let me give you a line, because ours is different from what you got on your paper. Supreme and wondrous Dharma,
Supreme and wondrous Dharma,
subtle and profound,
subtle and profound,
rarely is encountered,
rarely is encountered,
even in a million eons.
even in a million eons.
But now we see and hear it,
Now we see and hear
and accept it reverently.
accept it reverently.
May we truly understand
May we truly understand
the Buddha's actual meaning.
the Buddha's actual meaning.
师父上人，各位师兄，大家阿弥陀佛. Venerable Master, Dharma friends, welcome to our Sutra lecture tonight. It is now 27th, I believe, of May, almost at the end of May. We're here in Berkeley, California, and it's 7:30 p.m. on a Saturday night. And we've got more folks this week than we had last week, and I predict next week there'll be more folks than we have this week. And I'd like to offer some appreciation to our hardworking tech team who put this webcast not only onto GoToMeeting so that people can dial in live, but also archive it on YouTube where other folks are watching live. Honorable tech team, anybody from Australia watching? Checking in? Don't know. You can't tell if they're watching. They don't sign in on YouTube. Okay, yeah, please do if anybody from Australia. Because why do I ask? 2 weeks ago, that's where I was physically, and it's now Sunday. It's 12:37 p.m. afternoon in Queensland, and there were 10 of us 2 weeks ago, looking at this hall and thinking, my goodness, golly, Mr. Science, technology is wonderful, allowing people truly around the planet. You get a sense of the distance covered and how technology shrinks the planet. not only is it around, it's under. Australia is way down under. And if you want to put your body from here to there, you got to go 13 hours in a flying tube called an airplane to get there. But it's interesting how there's a latency. People who know about audio matters, I say it, and there's a gap between when I say it and your ears hear it over there. So just a few seconds. And so wonderful that we've got the ability to span the globe as we explain the sutra. So let's start with, you see the Chinese here. There's Hanzi, kanji, Chinese characters, and then underneath each Chinese character there's a ABC spelling of the sound of that character. We chant the name of the sutra, and the Buddhas and Bodhisattvas, those who first spoke it, we chant those names in Chinese. So people are encouraged and welcome to try it out. Even if, you never in the whole world thought you might ever be saying Chinese words, here's a chance to run them through your speech maker, your speech apparatus, your tongue and your mouth and your eyes and ears. And it's kind of fun to listen to those Chinese sounds coming out. And what we're saying is Namo Da Fang Guang Fo Hua Yan Jing, just like it looks there at ABCs. Hua Yan Hai Hui Fo Pusa. That's what we say. And if you want to know what it means, just look up. Homage to the Buddhas, Flower Garland Sutra of great expansive teachings, and the ocean-wide Flower Garland Assembly of Buddhas and Bodhisattvas. That's our best English translation of what the Chinese says. So we chant that, and the idea is that in the name of the sutra there's power, there's energy, because it's been part of our spiritual consciousness for minimum 2,600 years. It's a long time. Whether or not it existed before that in other worlds and other universes, don't know, but that's the way they explain it. It's been around a long time. And so here in 2017, when we say those same syllables, there's a continuity, there's a connection that's made, and a sense of we kind of exist in the ether. We're here, making those sounds again. And there's something there, a sense of connection with good-hearted, wise people of the past, moving through to from now until who knows, into the future. So let's do our bit and chant those names. Here we go. Namo Da Fang Guang Fo Hua Yan Ji Hua Yan Hai Hui Bo Pu Sa. Namo Da Fang Fo Hua Yan Ji Hua Yan Hai Hui Fo Pu Sa. Namo Da Fang Guang Fo Hua Yan Ji Hua Yan Hai Hui Fo Pu Sa. Namo Da Fang Guang Fo Hua Yan Ji Hua Yan Hai Hui Fo Pu Sa. Namo Da Fang Guang Fo Hua Yan Ji Hua Yan Hai Hui Fo Pu Sa. Namo Da Fang Guang Fo Hua Yan Ji Hua Yan Hai Hui Fo Pu Sa. Namo Da Guang Fo Hua Yan Ji Hua Yan Hai Hui Fo Pu Sa. Any sign in, Mr. Techman? Not yet. Okay, we'll find out who's there. All right, if you would please open up to page 2 and 3 in your text. Everybody have one? Who wants one? Got a text? Looking around the room, it's great to see some faces who have been here in this space, the Berkeley Monastery, since the very, very beginning. 22 years now. And looking at you, John, and others. Great. How nice. People who travel 50 miles to get here in their car. Amazing. And then faces of folks who are here for the first time tonight, checking out what a sutra lecture might be. And welcome to you. And folks in between. We are beginning tonight. This is an important night in our progression of explaining the Flower Garland Sutra, because we're starting the 8th ground, Di Ba Di. And I remember when we started the first ground of this chapter, this is called the 10 grounds chapter, the 10 stages, Dasha Bhumi. You could say 10 locations or 10 places. All those words would be okay for translating Bhumi. But this is number 8, and if you look here, our translator layout person has done some homework, and she says 8th and 9th. This is part 5 out of 6 parts in the 10 grounds. That's just talking about how the Chinese divide the text. But what I wanted to show you was, look at the dates there. Can you see in the small print to the right, flush right? Chinese translation upon imperial command by Tripitaka Master Shikshananda of Khotan, 699 CE. CE is what we used to call AD, right? Common Era. Nobody uses AD anymore because that's uniquely Christian language. Anno Domini, Latin, in the year of our Lord. That's using only the Christian reference to the calendar. So everybody decided to drop the unique specific religious naming of the year and call it Common Era, CE. And we used to say BC, remember? The dates used to be BC, before Christ, right? Well, not everybody in the whole world knows who Christ was. And so if we can find another designation for time that opens it up to everybody, then we said BCE, before the Common Era. And of course the Christians can happily say before the Christian era. Go for it. If you want to own it, it's good. It works for you. But CE, BCE, so this is 699. So almost 700, 1 year shy of 700. That's a long time ago. 2,000 years, to be exact, because we're 2017, right? So we're actually not quite, 2017. So, but 2,000 roughly. This was because you put it ahead, this was the first year minus 1 of the 8th century. So when it's 700 CE, it's the 8th century. That's the way you number it. So 8th century, whoa. What was going on in Europe in the 8th century? Called the Dark Ages, right? It's a time when there were little pools of learning and civilization surrounded by very tall stone walls. Because why? The Goths, the Visigoths, the Ostrogoths, the Vandals, and the Huns, one by one, came roaring down, mostly out of the north, and laid waste to everything they found. And then after they were done, the Vikings came in their long ships, my ancestors, out of the northwest, Scandinavia, and laid waste to everything they found. So the only thing that survived was the cultures that had big, tall towers. And learning, ABCs, although it wasn't English then, learning was mostly centered in the Bible. That was the book, right? The book was the Bible. And interestingly enough, and this is a side note, the people who kept the book and how to read it alive mostly were, starts with an M, spelled O-N-K-S, monks, right? There's a whole bunch of scholarship called How the Irish Saved Civilization. Yeah, pretty much, I mean, other scholars will challenge it, but you can make the case that it was Irish Catholic monks who, for centuries, because they lived in tall towers on islands and could survive on bread, so the Visigoths, Ostrogoths, etc., couldn't burn down their towers. And who cares? There's a couple dozen skinny monks in a tower, let them be there. It's too much trouble to try to climb it and kill them. So when the Goths and the Vandals and the Huns kind of flowed out, the monks carefully came back down and said, anybody want to read? We got a book, hand lettered. So that was going on in Europe. What was going on in China was Tripitaka Master Shikshananda, Xi Xue, love of study, is how his name translates, came out of Khotan. Khotan is now called the Silk Road country. It's pretty much, where is Khotan? I should say it exactly. Don't look it up. Put your phone away. Don't. Thank you for thinking of that. But it's somewhere in what might now be Kazakhstan. It's one of the stands, right? So Khotan. It was a country that caravans passed through, so it was a really good place to learn a lot of languages. And Master Shikshananda was one of those monks who knew, okay, we got an expert. Where's Khotan? Anybody know? What is Khotan currently? Anybody know, like off the bat? Khotan? Don't know? Yeah, don't look. Don't look if you don't know. So, anyway, he came along with a caravan to where? To Xi'an, not to Xi'an, Chang'an then, it was called Chang'an, which is out in the west. It's kind of like Montana, if you think of China, where Chang'an was. It was the capital at the time, and now it's called Xi'an, same city. And Master Shikshananda, among others, got these scrolls, mostly wrapped up in birch bark, or sometimes silk, or sometimes, whatever could roll up paper, but paper was too rare and precious and edible. Bugs ate paper, so they had to find something to write on. They unrolled it, and here it was in Sanskrit or Sogdian, or what were some of the other, translation languages? Indian script, Avatamsaka Sutra. Master Shikshananda, 2,000 years ago, looked at that, looked out at his assembly and said, okay, how do we translate this line? And they talked about it, wrote it down. I think it's Shi Shi Tian Wang Ji Tian Zhong. 2,000 years ago, this page came into being of what's in front of you right now, right? So what's our second line say? Provisional English translation by Buddhist Text Translation Society, 1980, 2017. The 2017 part, that's you. That's you. We're doing it again, only on this side we got Chinese, and this side we got English. So, why explain it that way? To put a circle around what we're doing. We're connected in this process of translation. This is a living document. It's had a new birthday in 1980 and 2017 because now we're trying to understand the Chinese the same way Master Shikshananda back in 699 CE. Everybody got a copy there? Get a copy of our text? Back in 699 CE said, let's see now. The Sanskrit ought to be translated into Chinese. So we're carrying it forward. Living document. It's alive. And provisional translation. This is what we got tonight is a work in progress. But how interesting that this thing has been in people's eyes, mouths, ears, and brains, hearts, for all those years. All those years. Still got juice. If you squeeze it, you still get flavor out of it. Right? Interesting, huh? So, I didn't keep track of our starting point, but I've asked this before. Anybody remember when we opened the 10 grounds? Was there a date for that? Anybody recall? Was it 5 years ago? Maybe. Might have been 5. Anybody remember? When was it? 2009? Anybody else remember? So, maybe 8 years ago, we opened up first ground. It sure seems like yesterday, but it wasn't yesterday. Time goes so fast. Now we're on the beginning of the 8th ground. Wahoo! 8th and 9th ground. I remember saying at the time, if I had thought, this is what I said back then, if I had thought when we got to the Berkeley Monastery that 12, 13 years into our residence here, I would be explaining the 10 grounds chapter, that I would have been a happy camper. I never actually thought I would have the chance to explain the 10 grounds. For me, that's progress in a lifetime of practice. And here we are. We're actually getting there. So, how nice. And be able to share it with folks and to sustain it, to carry it on, so that it's actually, we're turning the pages and asking ourselves, what does that mean? That's a good thing. That's a good thing. And ideally, in the best of all possible worlds, some of you all would be part of this process and say, yeah, I don't know why, but I kind of feel called to this. I'm supposed to be part of this. Just the way we were walking into Gold Mountain Monastery in 1970-something and having Master Hua say, we're going to be explaining the Da Fang Guang Fo Hua Yan Jing. Come on in. What's that, Shifu? Well, sit down. And we did, and it was like, whoop, something's pulling me. I'm supposed to be part of that. Okay, that's the context, and it's historical, what we're doing. From 699 CE to 2017, right? 21st century, still going. All right, 8th ground. What we're going to hear tonight, I advertised this at lunch today. What we're going to hear tonight, notice we've got just 2 pages of English, because I translate during the week as we go along. It gets put into the manuscript, and then we all look at it and use our best wisdom to move it forward. So next week, ideally, we'll see how far we get tonight. Next week, we'll have a thicker booklet and a thicker one and a thicker one, and by the end of the 9th ground, we'll have 20, 30 some pages. Then we get to the 10th ground, which is called the ground of the Dharma cloud, Fa Yun Di. And it talks about, the 10th ground is really, really sublime. It talks about the mind. What's the mind like? The mind is like the ocean. How much rain does it take to make the ocean overflow its banks and submerge the land? The answer is, you can't, right? It couldn't rain hard enough. Well, I don't know, go ask Noah, right? Noah will say, oh, it can happen, can float a boat when it rains hard. Well, how much rain does it take to make the ocean flood the land? More rain than we can imagine. I mean, the Bible will tell you different, but so the mind at the 10th ground can hold all the Dharma the Buddha speaks. Right now, even at the 8th ground, the Bodhisattva has a limit. The Buddha, there's more Dharma than the Bodhisattva can contain, can learn. There's a limit. But when you get to the 10th ground, you've uncovered more capacity. So your mind can truly, truly hold all the Dharma the Buddha speaks. Okay? And I might mention, if anybody wants a Vietnamese translation, there's one happening here, right? Upstairs in the balcony. If you're struggling along with a smile on your face, not understanding because you speak Vietnamese, please take advantage of our varsity translating team. Mai is up there helping the Vietnamese speakers understand what I'm saying. She's listened to me long enough that she knows my jokes, so she can pretty much do the translation, you know. And so, okay. Are we ready to dive in? Let's look at page 2, and we've got, notice it says Dibadi, 8th ground. Let's do the title, since we can. Tonight's the night we can do the title. So up at the top of the page where it says Da Fang Guang Fo Hua Yan Jing, Shi Di Pin Di 26 Zhi Wu. Ready? I'll give you a line, you give it back. Da Fang Guang Fo Hua Yan Jing, Shi Di Pin Di 26 Zhi Wu. Okay, that should have been Di 26 Zhi Wu. Okay. How about Di Ba Di? All right, we'll do one quatrain, one paragraph. Here we go. Shi shi tian wang ji tian zhong wen si sheng heng jie huan xi wei yu gong yang yu ru lai qi yi wu yang da pu sa. All right, good. Over in the English, let's read it in unison together from the top. Ready? The Avatamsaka Sutra, chapter 26, the 10 grounds, the 8th ground. Here we go. Just then, the Deva rulers and all the multitudes of Devas felt delight upon hearing about those sublime practices. They wanted to make offerings to the Tathagata and to the great innumerable bodhisattvas as well. Okay, as it happens, when I read this in preparation, I thought, oh no, I would change it immediately. It should be, and to the innumerable great bodhisattvas, instead of the great innumerable bodhisattvas. Great should modify the bodhisattvas directly, not with innumerable in it. But that's what we're doing. We're ironing out the wrinkles and untying the knots and getting it into good English. Okay, 10 grounds chapter, 8th and 9th stage, 10 stages chapter, 8th and 9th ground, 8th ground. Right then, when was then was after the 7th ground was done, Tian Wang Ji Tian Zhong, the Deva rulers. Okay, what's a Deva? And why not God? The kings of gods. You could also translate Tianwang, kings of gods. I chose Deva because God is a buzzword for theologians, people who study religion, for scholars of religion, and for Christians particularly, but also for Hindus, also for Muslims. If we say that gods and the kings of gods were there, the question rises, well, who was it? Was it, God in heaven, God Almighty? Was it Shakra? Was it Brahma? Was it Indra? Was it Vishnu? Was it Shiva? Was it Rama? Who was it? And just to avoid all that, we say something specific, which is Deva. Deva is a Sanskrit word. Why are we translating from Chinese back to Sanskrit? It's because some of these words need to be introduced. Bodhisattva is one of them. Dharma is one. Prajna is one. Samadhi is one, right? Buddha is one. So Deva is a word that we can profitably translate, leave in Sanskrit, so that people get to know it, because Deva is a Dharma realm. What's a Dharma realm? It's a realm of beings. Humans are a Dharma realm. Ghosts are a Dharma realm. Animals are a Dharma realm. Asuras, that's another one. It'd be fun to translate it as Titans. We don't dare do that, because that would bring it into Greek mythology. People don't know what Titans are. That's the name of a football team, right? Yeah. So Titans are Asuras. I mean, to do comparative mythology is tricky at best and often unwise. But by every account we have, Greeks talk about Titans. You read Edith Hamilton is the popularizer. She was the best writer on Greek mythology. She talks about Titans. Who are Titans? Titans are this race of beings. By the way, a Dharma realm. A Dharma realm of beings, a species, a race of beings that are always fighting with the gods for authority on Mount Olympus. This is the story, the way the Greeks tell it. The Hellenistic world says Mount Olympus is the sacred mountain in the center, and the gods are up there, Zeus and Hera and Athena, all the gods. And Titans, this other race, is always trying to overthrow them. Titans are very large. They exist to fight. They're fierce fighters. And the warfare is eternal. Okay, switch over Buddhist Sutras. Oh my goodness. Where do they come from? They come from mythology, from the old stories told a little further east. Think geography, Hellenistic world, centered in Greece, traveling through Egypt in the south, and to India, to Iran, which used to be known as Persia, and up, didn't go past the mountains into Italy much, but through the Mediterranean, that was the Hellenistic world. What do they talk about? They talk about Devas, or gods, in Mount Olympus fighting with Titans. Move it all east to where Hindu, Brahmin / Buddhist teaching lives. Those stories say, oh yes, there is a mountain. The mountain's called Mount Sumeru. And on this mountain, there are Tianren, Devas. And guess who are always fighting with them for power? Mount Sumeru, the Ashura. Some people say Asura, others say Ashura. So I say Ashura, same, Asura. What are the Asuras? They're these big beings that live to fight. They're always contending with the Devas for power on Mount Sumeru. Stories go, they match. Now, what's interesting is I am not a student of Greek mythology. I just know Edith Hamilton and kind of poked around how it kind of leaked into other stories. I never studied it precisely on its own, but I have read the Buddhist accounts, and one of the best places to read the Buddhist accounts of Mount Sumeru, the Devas and the Asuras, is the Avatamsaka Sutra. What does it say? It gives you incredible details about the combat. Who would think that you're no longer a human being, you've cultivated to a point where you have enough gongda, enough merit, virtue, and fubao, blessings, to leave the realm of humans and go to the realm of gods, and you're involved in a war. You're drafted to go to war to fight the Asuras. Because if you don't, the Asuras will take over. Who would think, right? The sutra talks about it. It tells you what weapons the gods use to defeat the Asuras. You want to hear about them? Want to hear about the bloody combat in the heavens? Right? You think, oh man, he's born in the heavens. It must be lovely, right? Well, get your weapons, because here come the Asuras to kill you and throw you out. Oh my God. Okay. It says, and this comes from the Heng Sure, the chief of virtue, the worthy leader, we translate it, but it's the chief, the show of those who are Xian, who are good and worthy. So chief good chapter, earlier than our 10 grounds. It says, the chief among gods, whose name is Shakra Devanam Indra, who interestingly, and we don't overlap here, but it says, this is Lord God Almighty, the Christian, the Lord God of the Hebrews. It says it's the same one. We don't talk about that with certainty, because that would be co-opting somebody else's, creator figure. But here's Chakra. Chakra's chief in the second heaven of the desire realm. It's called the heaven of the 33 gods, Triastrimsha heaven, Sansha Santian. He knows that the Asuras are coming one more time. Here they come, just with all their weapons, trying to fight their way into the heavens and knock the Devas out. And what does he do? He hits the tiangu, the drum of the heavens. Boom, 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 boom. It's a war drum. The Devas hear the drum and they go, uh-oh, battle time, right? We got to go to arm, mobilize. We got to go grab our stuff. So what does Chakra do? Chakra is a cultivator. He's not only a Deva, but he's got psychic ability, Shantong. So what does he do? He changes his body. Says the sutra. You can read it yourself in the Shenshopi. Changes his body. What does he change into? He changes into an Ashura himself with eyes that bug out of his head and flash lightning. Huge eyes, right? And he transforms multiple heads. His heads grow, and each head has flashing lightning bolt eyes. And he transforms into thousands of hands. Each of the hands carries a flaming pestle. What's a pestle? Pestle is a thing you grind with, mortar and pestle, you know. It's a club on steroids, right? And this club is unbreakable, and it's flashing light, and every hand is swinging a club. But more importantly, because he has psychic power, Chakra is able to get into the heads of the Asuras so that every single Ashura sees that Chakra is coming right for him alone. Thousands of flaming pestles and thunderbolt eyes are bearing down on you, you poor sad individual Ashura trying to, fight your way into heavens. Here comes Chakra. And it says, the sutra says, it's just so incredibly scary that the Asuras turn tail and run, frightened to death. So there's no, quote, bloodshed in the heavens, but the conflict, the combat is intense. Now, as this has been the story in the sutra for 2,000 years, think about video games, which I know none of you have ever played. You're all not video players, right? No, not video games. No, we don't do that, right? Think about your best video game. I don't know what is it? I don't even know the names anymore. But Mortal Kombat or what is it? Can't hear? Pokemon. No, not Pokemon. There's not bloodshed in Pokemon. I know, the guys are going, oh, jeez, Connie, good, jeez, right? So what is it? World of Warcraft. Okay, World of Warcraft, right? Where you got a first-person shooter, and he's like awesome, and you're out fighting goblins and killing zombies and stuff. Exactly like that. I mean, not a little bit like that. Exactly like your best video game is how the sutra. So my question is, where did the video game developers get their ideas for stories? It's coming through the feet. These are the original stories. It's real. As much as the Avatamsaka Sutra is a description of reality, only an invisible reality we don't get to look at unless we open our vision, those stories are in our deepest levels of awareness. Video games give you, now I don't play them, I honestly don't. I mean, I can't tell you what it's like, but I kind of get it around the edges, right? So video games are, now our CGI and our computer skills are such that we can recreate, we can give form to those old stories. Jinchuan?
Just on that point, actually, whenever we were doing the Avatamsaka translation, when we had to look up all those different beings, Gandharvas, Garudas, the first thing that comes are video games.
Correct.
See all the images of the video games for these beings.
So, yeah, got to explain that. So we're translating the Avatamsaka Sutra here, and we come up, right now we're translating the various groups that come to praise the Buddha, right? And first it's the Asuras, then it's the Garudas, then it's the Kinnaras, then it's the Mahoragas, and then, one by one they all come up. And so because we're using a computer and a projector, everybody looks at the screen, So what do? We like, okay, let's look up Ashura. So you type in Ashura into Google or into Wikipedia. What comes up is incredibly advanced video game figures that have co-opted the name and created characters. All right, so if you've seen Transformers, it's like, oh yeah, Heroes, Guardians of the Galaxy 2, where do those ideas come from? They're there. We're just filtering them up through our consciousness. They've been there all along. Well, what is this? The original video game script? Yeah, it is. But it's way, way, way more than that. This is a textbook. It's not fiction. This is not for sale in the market, in the bookstore, a Kindle. This is the Buddha telling us how it is. Really the way it is, right? So you go, oh my goodness, Wouldn't it be interesting if video games and Buddhist sutras merged? And, the sutra corrected the game and the game embodied this text.
We would need a bodhisattva figure. So I don't know if we had a bodhisattva.
I don't know if there is
so
one.
you go and
It's
saving living
Pokemon.
beings.
Pokemon is
You go save living beings rather than killing living beings. That's actually a pretty good idea. Most of the video games have the figures fighting in great battles. So we have a great bodhisattva
here's
figure.
the Avatamsaka Sutra is showing a battle. I mean, this actually didn't occur to me before, but maybe if we had a stable of skillful video game creator talents to come into the Dharma, wouldn't it be interesting if they made a really fine video game according to the sutra? Because it's alive. This sutra is full of beings. They mostly aren't bloodthirsty. And if you're going to make, what's auto theft, Grand Theft Auto 12 or whatever it is now, Grand Theft Auto where you're pulling people's spines out of their bodies. No. It can't be like triple XR rated. It's got to be, in the end, it has to be for saving living beings. But, I mean, why not? Let's get a Buddhist video game going. Because the stories are merging. They're different, they're not the same, but the stories are merging. And the difference would be virtue, precepts. So it would have to be a video game that didn't leave a trail of bodies behind, So, and people would have to stay in their clothes pretty much, You'd have to, stay dressed, But, how interesting. So, here you have, what point I'm making is, in a moment, we're going to be talking about Deva rulers and multitudes of Devas. I didn't say gods. I don't think we should do gods anymore, because gods is specific and Devas is specific, and they're not all the same. What are Devas? Devas are beings who are no longer humans. They've gone beyond human realm in terms of blessings. Wow. However, when they get to the realms of Devas, and how many are there? 6 levels in the desire realm, 28 levels in the form realm, in the Brahma heavens, and 4 levels in the formless realm. So there are many, many, many. We are polytheistic, yeah. Are we non-theistic? Yeah. Are we atheistic? No. If we were atheistic, none of the Devas would be there. Lots of Devas. Are we polytheistic? Well, sort of, but it's accurate to say, from the point of view of monotheism, which is the favorite story of the Abrahamic religions, one God only. Ask Christians, ask Catholics, ask Muslims. One, right? One God. We don't do it that way. We don't say there is a creator being. We give that work to the mind. But gods very much play a part in the cosmology of the way the Buddha described it. He says, yes, lots of gods. Are they polytheistic the way the Hindus do it, where Shiva, Brahma, Rama fight for, for devotees? No, not that way. all these devas are on their way to deeper awakening. The realm of devas is one more stop. It's still part of mortality. It's still involved in samsara. So you can be the highest level of deva, but if you don't cultivate, you will leave the realm of devas, right? It's not permanent there. That's the big difference in the way the Buddha described it. It's not the end by any means. Okay? And while you're there, you can be a soldier. You can be a general. You can die in the fighting with the Asuras. How interesting. Who would think, Very interesting. So, the sutra describes these multi-handed warrior chakras bearing down on the Asuras, and the Asuras see it, they're terrified, they split. We'll come back again next time, And Chakra resumes his deva form and goes on back home to meditate and speak the Dharma. So, interesting, huh? You want to find out about what it's like in heaven? Read the Buddhist Sutras. Oh yeah. Just then the Deva rulers and all the multitudes of Devas felt delight upon hearing about what was going on in the seventh ground, the sublime practices. To summarize, the sublime practices were the Bodhisattva learning how to teach. It's a school. Seventh ground was a school for Bodhisattvas who want to get really good at teaching, speaking Dharma. It's called expedient wisdom, is the theme of the seventh ground, which means not only are you good at teaching, you teach according to each different individual's ability to learn. For example, I spent quality time with Marty Verhoeven, Professor Verhoeven, when he was Heng Chao in his 18 years as a Buddhist monk, and being, two people in a station wagon or out on the highway for all those years, we got to know each other's habits and thoughts. And Marty, I'm sure he wouldn't mind my talking about this. He is a visual person. He's a martial artist, and if we are to believe Master Hua's description, he was Liang Wu Di, emphasis on the Wu, right? The martial emperor of the Liang dynasty, and so the first ruler of any dynasty in China, you look at the pattern, is the baddest cat. He's the military conqueror of the previous corrupt, ought to be destroyed, ready to fall, former dynasty. The new, he's the boss warlord. Comes in and wipes out the old corrupt dynasty, sweeps clean and makes ready, because heaven gave its mandate. The old should be swept out. The new comes in. All right. That was him, according to the story. So, martial skills. Okay? Marty can look at somebody and know, and I know he does this in a first glance, in a split second, he can evaluate somebody's walk and know where their weak point is and how to defeat them, how to throw them to the ground. He does it. He doesn't even know he's doing it. His eyes look at somebody and he knows how to engage with them and throw them. He had a black belt in Taekwondo. He was an instructor in martial arts and all. And it's just, it's so much a part of him, he doesn't know he can do it. But ask him to speak a couple sentences in French, and he's like, I don't do that, I took 6 years of French in high school, repeated 1 year twice, still got C's, Shifu would say, Guoting, you should learn Chinese. Okay, Shifu, I promise I will. I'm going to learn Chinese, Shifu. Okay, try your best, Shifu would say. And then Guoting would go, 我不会中文, he would say. Doesn't have the ears, You look at his hand and he's got like 1, 2, 3 lines, 3 basic lines. And so here I come along, and so how does Shifu teach him? All right, expedient wisdom. Shifu says, okay, you are the Dharma protector. Here's your monk. You protect him. And if I see you throwing one fist or one kick, you are no longer my disciple. Ha! Not easy, is it? He would say. Or he would say, what do I do, Shifu? And Shifu would say, he came up first day, we were about to go down to LA to begin our pilgrimage. Shifu comes over and says, oh, you got a little cart here, huh? I said, yeah, Shifu, what do you think? Says Marty. Shifu says, the axe. Give me the axe. What axe? The one that you got hidden on the bottom of the cart. But Shifu, how can I protect the Heng Sure if I could give me the axe? Hidden in the bottom of the cart. How did nobody could see it? Marty digs it out. Okay, Shifu. Shifu takes it, puts it down. He says, not easy, is it? So he's the martial artist and he can't use his martial arts. Okay? There's a good teacher. All right? Throwing him back on his mind. So what about me, right? Well, the only thing that carried me through school was my ears. I studied, French through high school, and then I met Chinese. And I took 2 years, I took 2 languages, 2 foreign languages, Chinese and French in high school. And I never could fight. I was never a fighter. All the time growing up, I never, got in a fight, threw a punch. I would always talk my way out of conflict. And my hands, I've got like lines upon lines upon lines upon lines. And my basic identity is a translator. I'm happiest when I'm not sitting in this seat, but in that seat. I'm only here by default. I shouldn't be here, but there's no other, monk. They all disappeared. They all went away. But I'm the translator always, and I got put here because somebody has to sit here. And I'm a language person. These are strong, So what does Shifu do for me? Expedient wisdom? You don't talk. That's the best. Okay, sure. Skillful teacher, right? The martial artist can't throw a punch, and the translator can't talk. Okay, go bow. Be true, So that's skillful wisdom, right? So feel delight upon hearing these sublime practices. Expedient wisdom. You teach each individual in a way that goes directly to their weakness. The point being what? We're not growing or gaining anything by our cultivation. We're getting rid of our attachments, false thoughts, and habits. 习气毛病. That's the fastest way home. Because progress is not measured by gaining. We advance by subtraction. Okay, if that makes sense. The goal is an uncovered Buddha nature. Right? So we really do make progress by getting rid of what covers us over. There's no other yardstick of how you've grown in Dharma. So the 8th and 9th ground Bodhisattva have less ignorance than the 7th ground Bodhisattva. So it's very different yardstick of how we're growing in our cultivation, right? We're getting rid of, removing. So for Marty, if he was told to be out there and be a vigorous, martial arts Dharma protector, that's just reinforcing something he already knew in the world. But to tell him to protect only by using, Shifu said, I'll give you 4 power tools, he said. 4 power tools, 4 weapons. Marty's thinking, whoa, I get some real high-level kung fu, Sherpa says kindness, compassion, joy, and serenity. Use those. You know, what? That's not going to work in the face of baddies who are going to come and beat us up. Sherpa says that's, if you can learn how to use those, no one will touch you or your charge here, this monk you're supposed to protect. So, okay, he can't use martial arts. He's stripping that away, that layer of identity. So the question for a martial artist who can't throw a punch is, who are you underneath that identity? Who do you think you are? Are you a grandfather? Not only, you're that, but what else are you? Are you a male? Well, not only, that's just the outside. What else are you? Are you female? Not only, what else are you? Are you Hispanic? Are you from Mexico? Are you Yankee? Are you from Massachusetts? You know, are you Taiwanese? Are you from Changhua? Not only. Are you Vietnamese? Are you from Hue? Not only. That's all outside, you know. Let's take it deeper. That's what the skillful teacher does. And everybody has a different blend. Are you a sister? Are you the second child? You have an older jie who's always in the spotlight and you're always kind of like tagging along after her? Not only. Not anymore, right? She's over there, you're over here. You got a whole life in front of you. But that's not true either. That's provisionally true. But deeper than that, who are you? So the skillful teacher can show you, and he can invite you to step out of it. But the stepping out, you have to do. That's the thing. What a really good teacher does is he invites you. But you have to do it. And boy, it's one step out, two steps back. One step out, or two steps out, one step back. It's hard letting go of all those layers of who I think I am. We cling to our costumes, our disguises. We cling to them. Because that's all we know. I mean, that's all we know. Stories that work, right? So man, tell somebody whose only defense has been his words that he can't talk. How vulnerable do you feel? What am I going to do if I can't talk my way out of the situation? Use your wisdom. Use your gongfu. Use your faith in Guanyin. Use your vows. Use your sincerity. Lots of things to use. But that's nothing, Sherfu. No, it's everything. That's the deeper level, you know. And most of us don't put ourselves in that situation of insecurity long enough to affect any change. That's one of the things about 3 Steps, 1 Bow was there was nowhere to run. There was no choice. It was that or, you know, run away. And that wasn't the choice. So, but the amazing thing is, when you put yourself in that place where there's nowhere to go, the Buddha Dharma is sufficient. It's enough. And it's not only enough, it's all we need. It's all we need. The Buddha Dharma are 84,000 agents of change. 84,000 catalysts. It's precisely there to change affliction to what's beneath affliction, what's inside affliction. That's what it's for. It's just a, you know, formula that you mix up and it turns green and it fizzes and it smokes and oh, you're different. And then you let that go. It doesn't exist either in reality, but it's just enough. That's what cultivation is for. But mostly we get to the point where we can change it and we run away. We get to the point where, I don't want to. We cling to our, you know, our identities. The Mei Mei, the Tai Tai, you know, the Laoban. Oh, all these different identities, you know. That's why there aren't lots of Buddhas around, because it's hard to trust something that's invisible And we've never seen anybody else do it. That's the other thing. That's the problem with the Dharma ending age, right, is there aren't models left and right. There aren't very many examples that we can say, there, I want to be just like that. I believe it's enough. It will take me across. Okay, we've got a monk sitting in the back of the room with a placard on his robe that says, Jinyu. We're forbidding speech. Jinyu. We're getting rid of speech. That's a funny Chinese translation. Silence, noble silence. One day, I'm not going to ask him how it's going because that would break his practice. Right? How was it? It was shh. Don't talk. So one day of silence. Putting yourself in that place, and boy, you meet somebody in the hallway, and up comes the energy. Talking. Mind moves, mouth opens. That's what people do. We got crows beat that way. I'm watching, I've got this very cool, there's something very wonderful happening in the San Francisco Bay Area, and I heartily recommend it. When you get back to your computer, plug into your browser SF Osprey Cam, or just Osprey Cam, OSPREY. An osprey is called a fish eagle. It's a bird. And nature cams are now pretty mature, very neat, high def and different focal lengths and all. The San Francisco Audubon Society has found a nest of osprey in Richmond. If you go out across the bridge into Marin, right, our Richmond Bay Bridge, they've got there's an estuary and an old Liberty ship, one of the World War II Liberty ships docked there, and they have a crane that used to be a live crane. It's tall structure, and a couple of ospreys have built their nest right there, and 2 chicks have come out, and they put the camera there, and the images are astonishingly clear, and you get to watch the mother and the father osprey raise 2 osprey chicks. The chicks are now, I think, 4 weeks old maybe, and they're just getting their pin feathers in, and they look just like dinosaurs. Anybody who's seen Jurassic Park and watched raptors come out, these 2 babies are dinosaurs. They're just, that's what they look like. They're naked still, their feathers are just this big, they're coming out, and they have these huge feet and these wobbly heads that are raptor heads, big beaks, And so what's the point? The point is, the mother and the father's name is Richmond, and the mother's name is Rosie, because it's the Rosie the Riveter site is right beneath the crane. Rosie the Riveter, the famous labor, work line woman who broke the gender barrier for wartime construction. So Rosie the Riveter, that's right there where she worked. And so Rosie and Richmond are raising these 2 osprey chicks, and they divide the labor up. And mostly Richmond, the dad, his job is to go out, bring in the fish. And he's pretty good. He's regular. But this morning, I was watching while I was checking my email, and Richmond was slow getting the fish. And so Rosie is going, and she's way up here. I can't get you the volume, but she's like, and then she was nagging him. Get some fish. It's your turn. Don't be lazy. These are hungry. And the chicks are like, and she wouldn't let him go. And she just like nagging him. So he's been a good provider, So he goes out and he comes back with a twig for the nest. He puts a twig in the nest. She's, that's not it. Fish. They're hungry. They can't eat wood. Can't eat sticks. So he goes out again, and he's like, 2 minutes later, whoa, big fish, plop, puts the fish down. And Mom straightens up, and she goes over and she uses this incredible beak and rips pieces of the fish off and puts them into the beaks of these two chicks. They're going cheep, 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 and feeds one after the other. And it's like, oh boy, it's not vegetarian, friends. It's nature, And so the fish disappears into the crops of these two chicks, and they're, and then they lie down again. And Richmond stands there and stands guard, and then Rosie will fly off, and you can see her fly, and you get these incredible views of the San Francisco Bay, from Richmond. So anyway, recommend it. Go type in Osprey Cam, SF, and it'll take you right there. It's it's for free and all. And it's amazing, at night they use infrared. So you can watch how ospreys nest at night and what they do. So anyway, watching the animals communicate. Bird language. From the wife to the husband, and then from the chicks and the mom talking to the chicks. And yeah. There's, they're in animals' bodies communicating between the mates and between the generations. It's amazing to watch. And you realize the power of language. Power of language. And how much we haven't much, how different, how much alike we are to ospreys, these large fish eagles, and how much we are alike and how different we are. The animals' Dharma realm to the realm of humans, and from the humans to the Devas. What did they want to do? 为欲供养于如来. They wanted to make offerings to the Tathagatas, Buddha. This is big. Offerings. They wanted to make offerings to the Buddhas. I completely didn't know about making offerings. I told the story last week that this is big. One of the things you do when you encounter a spiritual being is you relate to them by giving things. You give things. But what you give is not like expensive things. You can. You can hand the monks Rolex watches and keys to the Bentley if you want. I don't think I would wear a Rolex. I think it would cause more trouble than it was worth. I've got a Seiko, and it tells the time. It's great. Very nice watch. But what you do give is what? You give things that are harmless, nothing dyed, to put these some plant pathology. Oh, you cut those flowers and they scream. People will say that, okay, yes, but flowers are doing pretty well decorating Master Hua's picture. Maybe in the next life they'll be born in, an osprey. Is there upward mobility from the plant world to the animal world? I don't know, but maybe. Who knows? Is there somebody there in those carnations? It's the amount of sentience there to get to a mosquito would be hard. But probably so. Probably it moves up. Anyway, so that's an offering, right? Here's an offering. Music, here's an offering. Oolong tea, okay, here's an offering. Lamps, right? What else? Fruit. Suitable for the Buddha. What else? Incense, fragrance. What else? Clothing, right? Robes. What else? A monastery. Those are all wonderful, appropriate, suitable offerings for Buddhas and Bodhisattvas. The sutra goes on to say, if you really, really want to make offerings, do it invisibly. Offer Dharma. 主供养, 中法供养. So among all the different kinds of offerings, the offering of Dharma is the finest. And then you look into what that means, and it means mostly you change. You let them teach you. You become taught. Okay, those are good offerings. But it's central. That relationship me to the spiritual source that I respect, that's key. And bodhisattvas at the highest level keep on offering. The Lotus Sutra talks about Guanyin, offering beads, offering pearls to the Buddhas and to stupas, to the shrine dedicated to Buddhas who've entered nirvana. That's a good thing to do. Why is it so? I think it's because when you give stuff like that away, you give part of yourself away. The self is hard to get rid of, and you give it away with each offering. That's what that exchange does internally. And so that's why things you really care about, good things, are good to give. Things doesn't have to be expensive, but it's how much does it mean to you? If you can give away stuff that is dear to your heart, you're giving away more of yourself. Okay? Why is the giving of Dharma the best? It's because you're giving away the hardest thing to give away, that shred of identity that we talked about, right? The thing we cling to that is me. Give that away. Ooh, you're uncovering your nature. That's the highest kind of gift. Give away smoking. Give away eating meat. Give away attachment to, Starbucks. Can you let go of, don't say the word, chocolate? No, anything but chocolate. Please say something else. Ice cream. Chocolate ice cream. No. So, whatever. I gave away eating sugar for 3 years, and then I went back to eating sugar. I gave away all dairy products, and I didn't get back to dairy products. Didn't want it anymore. So, it's not that these offerings of Dharma even last forever. Whatever it is right now that you are really attached to, if you can let it go, it's a wonderful offering. And let it go in front of the Buddhas with that thought. I'm going to do without Coca-Cola for 6 months, and then try it again. But next December, I'll try again. You might decide you didn't really want Coca-Cola anymore. Whatever it is, you ask yourself. Those are really wonderful offerings because you're giving away a piece of something that is invisible but covers your nature, attachments, whatever it might be. Okay, you can give away not only letting go of stuff. Suppose you say, I'm going to give away doing. I'm going to do a good deed every day. Do something meritorious. Tomorrow, Karma Kitchens, opening strong, over at Taste of the Himalayas on Shattuck. I've been invited to go over to Karma Kitchen tomorrow morning for lunch, and that's a wonderful place to pay it forward, right? You all know about Karma Kitchen, the restaurant where you eat a wonderful meal and the bill comes and it's 0, and somebody else has paid for your meal. You don't know how much, but somebody else who came before you covered your meal. And so you're invited to do in kind. You're invited to keep the positive generosity moving forward. Pay for somebody else's meal. You get an envelope. And nobody counts how much you gave or didn't give. And people regularly go in there and just have this joyful sense of generosity having supported them, and they drop a $100 bill in the envelope. Happens all the time. Karma Kitchen's been going there now for a decade, never lost money. Somebody pays for the food, right? But they're never in the hole. There's always excess. So generosity comes out of your nature, and you feel like, wow, why don't we always do this? So anyway, that's tomorrow. If you want to experience that, go over to Taste of the Himalayas. I don't know if you have to make a reservation now, because there's always a line now. If you want to, go over and learn how to volunteer, ask the server if you can volunteer for next week. There's a waiting list to go work, volunteer. So, how wonderful. that you get connected to something as wholesome as Karma Kitchen. They wanted to make offerings to the Tathagatas and Chi Wuyang Dapusa, as well as all the great bodhisattvas who were beyond counting. They wanted to make offerings too. Okay, so what did they do? Oh my, we're going to read to the bottom of the page. This is what they offered. Ready? 与妙华幡及床盖，香曼璎珞与宝衣，无量无边千万种，悉以摩尼作演示，天女同时走天要，普发种种妙音声。供养于佛并佛子，共作誓言而赞叹. To the English over there, here we go. Ready? In unison. So they rain down limitlessly many, thousands of kinds of wondrous flowers, streamers, canopies, and banners, of incense, garlands, strands of gems, along with fine garments. All of these items decorated with mani jewels. Deva maidens in unison played music from the heavens, serenading on all sides with various wondrous sounds, as an offering to the Buddha and the Buddha's disciples, and together they sang these praises. Imagine if this were on the silver screen. Imagine if Hollywood really took it upon itself to illustrate this. What kind of a scene that would be. Did anybody see the reissue of Fantasia when it came around? When was it? 3 years ago, 4 years ago? Walt Disney did Fantasia again? Fantasia was one of Disney's most ambitious. When Walt Disney Studios were the only ones doing animation in America, that was, cinema length, movie length animation. Even if you haven't seen the movie Fantasia, you've seen pieces of it, because it was unprecedented. It's a fantasy. It's a story, a bunch of stories together, but the music that they integrated into the film and the way they animated it was nobody had ever seen anything like it before. And one of the best scenes was the Sorcerer's Apprentice, right? Bum 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 bum. And it's about, is it Donald Duck? Who's the apprentice? Is it Goofy or Donald Duck? I think it's Donald, or is it Mickey? It's Mickey Mouse. Mickey is the apprentice, and it's a fairy tale. It's one of our available fairy tales in Northern Europe about an apprentice who bites off more than he can chew. He thinks he can. In Chinese, the idiom is "pangmen nongfu." In front of the great master butcher Pang, you wave your cleaver, you wave your axe, meaning presumptuous. You're wet behind the ears, and you pretend to be a master butcher. You wind up cutting your hand off, right? So the sorcerer's apprentice is in the sorcerer's laboratory, and he pretends that he can handle stuff, and he gives a command, and it gets out of control immediately. And a broom, he commands the broom, I command you to, and the broom becomes multiple brooms, and the brooms become brooms, and they start sweeping, and they start sweeping and sweeping. And then he says, oh, well, we got to, we need some water to put out. So I command the bucket to fill with water. So it fills with water, and the water keeps coming and coming and coming, and, and so he's got a tiger by the tail, and he can't control it. It's out of control. And then at the last minute, the sorcerer returns. Da-da-dum, da-da-dum, da-da, and he gives the command, and the broom goes back to the broom, and the bucket goes back to the bucket, and the water goes, and Mickey's like, well, Mickey Mouse is suddenly humbled, and the sorcerer's apprentice. That's one of the episodes of Fantasia, of which there are how many? There's like 6 or 7. But it was a, unbelievable, unparalleled accomplishment for Disney Studios called Fantasia. And it was recently reissued, recolored. They found, I think there's a story within a story, that they found the original tape in some, library somewhere, nearly gone. The acetate had changed, and they found it just in time to digitize it, to recolor it, and to put it into 35 millimeter or whatever the format was. And it was, it came out, I don't think it lasted long because we've progressed a long time, but to see where it was, maybe it was 1956 or 57. David, you saw Fantasia, right? You don't recall, okay. I remember it was part of my childhood. And, oh my gosh, there were, it was an Avatamsaka state. There's one of the episodes in Fantasia, there are multiple episodes. There were flowers and sounds, and you can really imagine the scene that we just read right here with the Deva maidens and the Devas coming out to make offerings to the Buddha. If the Fantasia animators, and it was hand drawn. There was no CGI, no computers involved in the animation back then. It was all artists turning a page and doing it again and turning a page and doing it again. Magnificent hand animation. Basically, they invented the genre, Walt Disney Studios. So if you get a chance, look at Fantasia. It's unforgettable. It's part of my childhood. So raining down limitlessly many, thousands of varieties of, here we go, flowers coming down, streamers, right? Canopies and banners. We don't have any here. CTTB has got lots of banners and canopies in the Buddha Hall. And what else? Incense, things to please the nose. Here, look at the flowers. We are not short of flowers, boy. Look at our orchids back here. Spectacular displays of orchids here, right? Strands of gems and garlands, fine garments, beautiful clothing. All of these decorated with mani jewels. Mani is a spiritual substance. It's hard to describe, and not that I've seen it, but I've read it enough in the sutras to say it's real. But it's a kind of gemstone, maybe, kind of jewel that doesn't really exist. There's no crown on earth that has mani in it, but when the Buddhas and Bodhisattvas do something meritorious, it spontaneously comes down. They say mani falls from the heavens. And it's hard to get any analogy for it, but it's a special substance, brilliant and beautiful, and it makes up the body of the incense, garlands, gems, garments, etc. And it also is outside, it adorns them. That's Heng Sure here, means just jewelry, decoration. Okay, then next on the scene are Deva maidens, who are musicians. We've got them, oh, you can't see. We've got a Deva maiden over there. It's dark outside, so we can't see but she's part of our stained glass. And they are playing, musical tones. And so among human composers, we have had numerous composers who say they have channeled music from the planets, right? Dvorak, and who did music from the spheres? Any musicians here? Gustav Holst. Correct, thank you. Yes, music of the spheres. And you hear Mars. Mars is very warlike, and you hear Venus, and Venus is very tranquil and perfect and harmonious and beautiful. And we've had in India, there are ragas devoted to the sun, Surya, and to the moon. The moon is Chandra. Chandra. So in human history, there are lots of composers who feel the vibrations of the planets. They're the largest, closest things to us. The moon is the biggest, closest object to us. And beyond the moon is Mercury, Venus, Mars, Earth, Jupiter, Saturn, Uranus, Neptune, Pluto, and then the stars, the sun. So there, even with our limited hearing and imagination, we have had human composers who have said, yes, this is the music of the heavens. Here's how it sounds. But can you imagine listening to Deva music, what it would be like? Would it be like the Beatles? Would it be like the Rolling Stones? The Rolling Stones. I remember when the Rolling Stones were first introduced. And, they were so raw. Da, 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 boom, da, 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 boom. And who were the Rolling Stones imitating? They were imitating Delta blues musicians. Robert Johnson. They were trying to be Big Bill Broonzy. They were trying to be Bo Diddley, right? They were trying to be, he carried his guitar in a gunny sack, playing by the railroad track. Go, 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 John. It was these British middle-class kids trying to sound like black musicians from Mississippi. That's the Beatles. And the Rolling Stones. And the Beatles, too, they were inspired by black blues musicians but they channeled it through different, sides of the tracks. And now, Sir Mick Jagger, Sir Mick Jagger is a member of the Order of the British Empire, a millionaire, and Keith Richards is, these are our musicians, they create our culture, and they're hugely accomplished humans. And yet when we listen to that music, and then you think about, what would Deva music be like? How sublime. Music that would be suitable as an offering to the Buddhas. How amazing that would be. So, together with all these wonderful scenes happening, they sang these praises. We turn over and we get to hear next week the words they said as they got ready to do what? Request the eighth ground. Right? Jason walked around with incense tonight and said, will the Sangha with great virtue. He did a Dharma request, and this lecture came into being. Likewise, the Devas in the eighth ground, having done it 7 times previous, right? This is the 8th go-round. They're asking Vajra Treasury to please tell the story of the 8th ground. Let us know about that information so we can cultivate it. And that's where we're going to be next week. Okay. Okay, now we're going to first transfer merit because there are people listening online. Locke, did we get any sign in? Do we know where people are from? Nope. Okay.
Jerry did say that the first lecture for his son was July 5th, 2008.
July 5th, 2008. How about that? 9 years. 9 years and 8 grounds. Pretty good. So we're going to transfer merit. So if anybody needs to make an exit and wants to do it with the full cycle, they can do so and not hang on for what follows from 9 to 9:30. Give me 1 second here. That's the culprit. When you got 12, it takes a little longer. All right. So how do we transfer? It's up to you. Ready? Let's make a wish. May every living be our minds as one and radiant with light. Share the fruits of peace with hearts of goodness, luminous and bright. If people hear and see how hands and hearts can find in giving unity, may our minds awake to great compassion, wisdom, and to joy. May kindness find reward. May all who sorrow leave their grief and pain. May this boundless light dispel the darkness of their endless night. Take it up high. Because our hearts are one, this world of pain turns into paradise. May all become compassionate and wise. May all become compassionate and wise. One more time. May all become compassionate and wise. May it be so. Now, that's a different key than we're used to, but I did that so that I could use this guitar for another Dharma teaching that I've got here. But in the meantime, I found something I didn't even know I wrote, and I think I wrote it. I don't believe this is anybody else's. But if anybody else recognizes this and says, "You didn't write that, I wrote it," please let me know, because it's pretty funny. And I'd like to think that I wrote it, but I don't remember having written it. It just popped out of my collection. It's a song that I wrote at Buddha Root Farm, I think. Or somebody, me or somebody else by the same name, wrote this song and slipped it in my folder. It's called Buddha Root Blues. Anybody remember Buddha Root Blues? Okay, and it's kind of snarky, and you have to, if you were... There we go. On the first day of Dharma camp, I thought I would rather die. I pitched my tent in the briars. The thorns prick my thigh. It rhymes. I never should have left my friends at Hilltop Mall. Oh my. Why did I agree to Dharma camp on Turtle Mountain? Singing the Buddha Root Blues. Okay? My little brother likes it here. You know it can't be good. My mom is happy with her friends in the kitchen fixing food. I got bees and bears and monks for neighbors in this neighborhood. What a bummer. Dharma camp on Turtle Mountain. Singing the Buddha Root Blues. Anybody recognize it? No, is this mine? Okay, pretty snarky. What the monk who talks is saying clearly makes no sense. Everybody's laughing and I feel kind of dense. If I make believe I get it, that's my best defense against looking stupid at Dharma camp on Turtle Mountain. Singing the Buddha Root Blues. Then there's room for a couple more verses, but the final chorus is, I can't wait till next year. I hope I get the chance to return to Dharma camp on Turtle Mountain. So in the meantime, in those verses, there's been a transformation. So the first couple of days of thinking, am I the only one who doesn't get this? Maybe I'll laugh and then they won't think I'm stupid. So anyway, nobody recognizes it. Nobody wants to claim it. That's the truth, right? So, okay, maybe it's mine. Okay. One of the things I brought back from Australia is a setting for Song of Enlightenment. And I've been carrying this around. If I said 20 years, that's not really an exaggeration. First heard Master Hua do the Song of Enlightenment, Zheng Dao Ge, in 1985. And he said, any day that you can recite the Zheng Dao Ge is a day you'll be free of affliction, he said. 哪一天能念诵Zheng Dao Ge，就那一天就没有烦恼。So what's the point of that? Well, Master Hua said, you know, what if somebody said, Shifu, what's your state? And that's an invitation for a scolding as soon as you know. What did he say? He said, 我跟你们一样了，就是我没有烦恼。He said, I'm just like you. The only thing that's different with me is I don't have any affliction. So you think, what could that be like? What's affliction? No greed, no anger, no delusion, no pride, no doubts, no self. That's the Buddha's state, right? But Master Hua would never say, my state is it. He just says, got no afflictions. So everything's okay, no problem, is what he would say, and you know he means it, you know. So that's powerful. Anytime you can recite the Zheng Dao Ge, you don't have any afflictions, he said. Now, the question is, can you recite the Zheng Dao Ge? 62 verses? He can, from memory, right? Who ever memorized anything anymore? Nobody does. We don't memorize anymore. No. Well, one thing is it helps if you know Chinese, right? So if you have to learn Chinese before you can memorize Zheng Dao Ge, that's a long road. But how about if it's in English? That's a start, okay? So I've been carrying it around, translating it bit by bit, piece by piece, for a long time, thinking someday. So our sutra was translated in 699. Master Yongjia was roughly the same time. So this has been in the world for 2,000 years. It's a song. It's a song of an enlightened man who saw the Tao, right? Zheng Dao. Master Yongjia. His name was Xuanjue Fa Shi. And it's 62 verses, but there are some themes that go through. So I picked out a few verses. I'm not going to do all 62. You can rest easy. No, don't worry. You're not going to be here till next Tuesday, you know. So I picked out one. The theme is called the mirror of the mind. Xin Jing, right? The mirror of the mind is bright without a flaw. Everything's reflected, you can see it all. All 10,000 things revealed, perfect, round, and bright. No inside, no outside, just brilliant, pure light. Mind is the root, dharmas are all dust. Mind and dharmas both are like a mirror, stained and cracked. Polish out the stains and cracks, the mirror shines like new. Forget both mind and dharmas, the nature now is true. Goodbye to good and evil, goodbye to loss and gain. In stillness and tranquility you never ask again. Your wisdom mirror was coated thick, you never wiped it clean. Now it shines without a flaw, there's nothing you can't see. So there's 3 verses on the wish-fulfilling pearl, the Ruizhu. Restored Bodhisattva's holding it in his hand, right? This is the Mani Pearl, a treasure still unknown. Look to the Tathagata, but find it on your own. It works in 6 uncanny ways. It's here and now it's gone. A single round and perfect light. Now it's hidden, now it's shown. Once you get the root, you can let the branch tips be. like a jeweled moon that shines in lapis lazuli. Now that you have understood this wish-fulfilling gem, your benefits to self and others truly never end. The king among all dharmas, there's nothing more sublime. As every Tathagata together realized, hear my explanation of this wish-fulfilling jewel. Everyone who picks it up in faith will know the truth. I got three more here. Another theme called the Buddha nature, right? Master Yongjia talks about the Buddha nature. That's in the Song of Enlightenment. So, mirror of the mind, wish-fulfilling pearl, and the Buddha nature. This is just 9 verses out of 62, right? Moon on the river shines, the night breeze stirs the pines. In this clear eternal stillness, let things take their time. Buddha nature's pearl mine ground sets its seal. Mist and dew, rain and fog hide and now reveal. Blame it, it's not less. Praise it, it's not more. Its body is like empty space. It has no fence, no shore. It's never left this very place. It's always holding still. No matter how you try to see it, friend, you never will. You can't get it, you can't let it go. Since there's nothing there to get, why do you chase it so? When silent, it's still speaking. When speaking, always still. The giving road is open and the Dharma's flowing now. Someone asked, hey mister, this teaching, what's it called? I said, power to the Mahaprajna Paramita. So that's English of the Zhengdao Ge, just a tiny chunk. And I don't know. I think it's got a future. So we'll see who's the first to memorize it in English. Right? Oh boy, no afflictions. All right, announcements. Jin Chuan Shi, you want to grab that mic?
Well, all the classes are on
Louder. Got to open it. There you go.
Hello. All the classes are on summer break, except for the Thursday evening and Saturday lectures. So people, I think Stephen Tainers gave the last class last Wednesday. But this Tuesday we'll have the Abhayagiri monks here at Berkeley Buddhist Monastery. That will be June, I don't know how to count, how many days are in May? 31? Well, first Tuesday in June. Abhayagiri monks will be coming down at 5:30 for tea, or 5:30 for tea time, and then 7:40 for their sutra lecture. So if people like to listen to the Theravada monks speak Dharma. That will be happening this Tuesday night. Otherwise, our regular programs is Thursday and Saturday. So, if there's anything else happening?
You want to mention what we did today?
Okay. So Saturdays are our regular Dharma practice days. In the morning, starting at 9 a.m., we do a Dharma assembly from 9 to 10:30. We usually alternate between the Great Compassion Repentance and the Universal Door chapter, both practices dedicated to Avalokiteshvara Bodhisattva in the back, Guanyin Bodhisattva. And when we have our meal offering at 10:45, just like the offering we just read about in the sutra, 11 o'clock we have our noon meal with everyone together. And afterwards we have Buddha recitation at 1 to 3. People hit the ground bell and we talk a little bit about Pure Land practice. And then we have Chinese class at 3 o'clock, 3 to 5, around trying to make sense of our Chinese ceremonies. So it's a kind of an open space to look and investigate our ceremonies that we do day in and day out here in the monastery. And then we have 5 o'clock meditation and evening ceremony, followed by our sutra lecture. So that's our Saturday Dharma practices.
Okay, a lot going on. So people can come over and investigate all the different practices that flowed through our teacher to us. And sometimes it felt kind of like a time capsule. It was supposed to, we carry it along until it pops open at the right time, and then we can learn about that aspect of the Buddha's teaching. So there's a lot of flowers popping open in the garden at this point.
I saw Jing Forsher gave me a little sign language.
What's that?
Jing Forsher gave me a little sign language, which I think is calligraphy. So there's also calligraphy from 3 to 5 on Saturdays as well. So you want to learn some Chinese calligraphy?
Yeah,
You can
Mr.
come
Yap
at 3.
is our guide into Chinese calligraphy. He's got dedicated students who come week after week.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's a really great class. Then. Shufa. Writing with a brush. Okay, so have a week full of wisdom and compassion and blessings. And the mind is really a lot like a cell phone tower, if you think of it. If we're broadcasting generosity and wisdom and respect, that's the signal. That's on your channel. That's on your station. And there's no room for suspicion and fear and anxiety and stinginess when you're sending out. And the more we do it, the more comfortable that seems. Pretty soon that signal just becomes your program. People get it. That's how the world is. And in Judaism, tikkun olam, that's how the world is repaired, by people doing that all the time. See you next week. Bow in respect to the Venerable Master. Don't forget Karma Kitchen tomorrow. Taste of the Himalayas on Shattuck. It's over by it's right across actually from Chez Panisse, I think, just down the street. So that's at lunchtime. Namo Da Fang Guang Fu Huayan Ji Huayan